So it says, then the Lord said to Moses, go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their clothes, and let them be ready for the third day. For on the third day, the Lord will come down upon Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people. Right? That's really the verse where God sends Moses to tell the people that they must prepare themselves for the third day, because he is going to come down in the sight of all the people. He's going to come down where they can see him. It's going to be a personal appearance. And on this third day, it's a meeting between God and these people, the Israelites, right? So that's the meeting. Now, this isn't a president, a human ruler who is coming to speak. It is God himself who is coming down to address a whole nation, right? So what was the agenda of this meeting that it required God to have to come down and deliver the message himself? Well, the Israelites had just come out of Egypt and they were camping, they were camping in the wilderness in front of a mountain. And this mountain was Mount Sinai. We are going to see that God saves by grace in the Old Testament, not just in the New Testament. We're going to see that the reason why God came himself was so that he can clarify misconceptions that we have about salvation. We're going to uncover the misconception that being saved by grace is an excuse not to keep the 10 Commandments. Actually, we're going to realize that God intended the 10 Commandments for saved people to keep. We're also going to learn what it means to have God as our King, and we are also going to see what God expects from us when we become his citizens. We are going to learn all of this and more from the Old Testament. Let's begin. It says, and Moses went up to God, and the Lord called him from the mountain, saying, thus you shall say to the house of Jacob and tell the children of Israel, you have seen what I did to the Egyptians and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a special treasure to me above all people, for all the earth is mine. And you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. So Moses is given a message to remind the Israelites that they have just been saved from Egypt, and it is God's power only that saved you from Egypt. This salvation was accomplished by God's power alone, right? He says that you have seen what I did to the Egyptians and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself, right? That's what God says to the Israelites. He says that they saw with their own eyes that it was God's power that broke the strong grip that the Egyptians had over them. Remember, there were slaves there, and God worked these miracles, right? God showed his power, and he's the one that took them out. There was really nothing that they could do to save themselves. That's what God is reminding them of, that they were saved, and this salvation was only by God's power. If we notice this part here, it says that you have seen what I did to the Egyptians and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now, this verse makes it clear that it is God that brought Israel to himself. Israel did not bring themselves to God. It was God who, he says that he carried them on eagle's wings and brought them to himself. So there was nothing that they could do to bring themselves to God. He says that I brought you to myself, right? I'm the one that carried you like an eagle, and I brought you to myself, right? He's saying that I'm the one that did the saving here. Nobody ever get the impression that they worked themselves, that they even deserve to be here. Would you say that Israel was saved by grace?
Indeed, I would say so. In fact, very precisely, that's what happened, because he even explains the story so that it's clear before the Israelites You guys were in Egypt. Remember, you were in Egypt. Yes. And then what happened? I saved you from the Egyptians. Could you have done it yourself? No. And he always, like, he recalls that escape, if I may call it. He recalls the escape from Egypt, and he said, who was the person behind this escape, or who was the being that um actuated your escape? Who made it possible?
Mm.
Me, that God. Yeah, it's me. And I'm calling you. Firstly, before I tell you anything, I just want to let you know that I have saved you
Mm.
from your Egypt,
Mm.
and I've brought you out. That's typically grace. I would say yes. That's typically saved by grace.
Mm. Awesome, awesome.
Mm.
I'm glad that we are seeing it the same way. After this reminder, God says, "Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a special treasure to me above all people, for all the earth is mine. And ye shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation." So after saving and reminding them how they were saved, God proposes to adopt them as his own people. He wants to make them his own nation. He says that you will be a special people to me, and you will be this holy nation, a kingdom of priests, right? So he gives them a condition. He says that if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant. So there's a condition there. If they are willing to do what he says, if they are willing to obey him and listen to what he says with his voice, if they are willing to be obedient, then he is going to make them his own special nation. He's going to be their king, and really they are going to be his citizens, God's own special nation here on earth, a nation that will be ruled by God, and it would be God would be their king, like he would be like their president, right? So that was the proposition, that look, I've saved you, and I'm willing to make you my people. I'm willing to become your king, and I'm willing to govern you. I'm willing to rule you, to lead you to the promised land. I'm going to be your king. The Israelites agree to have God as their king. They say that we will do whatever God says. We want to be God's citizens. We want God to be our king, right? So now, after Moses returns the message that the people have agreed, then Israel becomes adopted as God's nation here on earth, a kingdom of God, the citizens of God, and God himself is the king. When we look at the next verses that follow after that, that's really where, after this confirmation has been made, after it's been official that Israel is now the Israelites are now the citizens of God. After that happens, then this is the message from God goes out that no, we're going to have a meeting on the third day. Prepare. The new king is coming to address his citizens, right? He's coming to speak to them and explain to them how things are going to work now that he is their king. Then it came to pass on the third day, in the morning, that there were thunderings and lightnings and a thick cloud on the mountain, and the sound of a trumpet was very loud. so that all the people who were in the camp trembled. And Moses brought the people out of the camp to meet with God, and they stood at the foot of the mount. So we see this incredible display of power. There's thunder, there's these loud sounds, like there's earthquakes, and it's really, the King of Kings had arrived, no doubt, right? That was God's entrance, right? He enters, and the people are waiting at the foot of the mount, and they're just trembling. They're anxious to know what their new king has come to say to them. They wanna know what is he going to say, and how are things going to work now that we are part of his nation, right? So there's that suspense, that anxiety there, and then finally the king says something. And God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image, any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing mercy to thousands of them, but showing mercy to thousands to those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. I'm sure you've all now realized what's going on. The king had come to speak his law, how things were going to work and operate while Israel was in his kingdom. God's government ran on the 10 commandments, and he expected his citizens to know this law and to become law-abiding citizens to these 10 commandments. That was how God's nation was run. That was the law that they were supposed to adhere to now that God was their king. I hope that we are all together so far. I hope that we have seen like the steps, the things that happened before that God actually even gave the Israelites this law. First, he saved them, and there was nothing that they could do to save themselves. God first reminded them that they were saved, right? And after this reminder that they are saved, they are taken into God's nation, and then when they are adopted into God's nation, God acquaints them. He teaches them. He tells them how things are going to work now that they are his people. Now he gives them the 10 commandments. So at no point did God want Israel to ever think that the 10 commandments were what were going to save them. No, he reminds them first that they were saved even before they were given this law. But now that they are saved and they are in a new kingdom, they have this law to adhere to, right? So God is giving them the law because he has already saved them, right? That is the law that saved people are supposed to abide by. That is how you are going to be able to identify that these people have God as their king.
I think you highlighted that thing that stands out for me in chapter 19, right? If I'm not mistaken. He firstly, as they come to camp before this mountain, Moses goes up into the mountain. He gives Moses a message to give to them, right? And then God now says to them, even though the whole world belongs to me, you as a people will be mine. And I will make you into a holy nation and a kingdom of priests. Then he said, please tell the Israelites that this is this is the message that I have for them. And then Moses goes back, tells the Israelites that God wants to make you a holy nation. I think it's verse 6 of chapter 19. He actually says, this is the plan. The plan is, I want to make you guys a holy nation, and you will be mine, and you will be my people. And then Moses tells the people. So it's the, for me, like you said, it's what stands out is the way God approached the Israelites. He approached them first before he gives them this constitution of like his kingdom and how it's run. Like you pointed out, he firstly begins by telling them the game plan. He tells them, okay, guys, I have made you come to me so that I can make you something. What is that thing? A holy nation. Oh, okay. Then that's when now the deal comes into play. Yeah, I'm picking that up as one of the things that, God was said before he actually told them what the constitution of his government looks like.
Before he even says this law, he reminds them again that I'm the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Really, if God is not the one who saved you, then you have no really any obligation, any responsibility to this law. This law is for those who acknowledge that the Lord, their God, is the one that brought them out of the land of Egypt. When we don't have that mindset, that remembrance of the huge debt that we owe God for, bailing us out of Egypt and taking us out of that situation where we couldn't save ourselves. If we don't remember that God is the one that saved us, then we won't even feel the need to listen to him as our king. After delivering us, he says, look, I've delivered you and I want to make you mine, right? It's like a proposition. And he says that, no, if you love my salvation, did you see what I did for you there? Did you see how I showed my power there? Did you see how I saved you? Do you love my salvation? Do you love what I've done for you?